We ended last night. We ended on a very conciliatory note, despite what's being said out there, that we're going to get back together when we have something to put across each other, and I'm waiting for them to do just that. So I want you to know we are going to handle the strike from our standpoint very methodically, calmly, and address the problems as they come up. At the same time, at the governor's very deep involvement in these negotiations, we're going to get to a solution that is fair and fiscally responsible. That is the game plan. There's nothing else to it. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Kris. Just to add to Chris's point, remember, and Kris went through this last night, we not only have buses, we have the path, we have ferries, we have light rail, all of which are being deployed aggressively. Secondly, and Kris literally left the press conference last night with a bunch of his colleagues and went out to MetLife. I think it's fair to say both the incoming and outbound traffic at the Shakira concert last night went really well. We're hoping for a similar experience tonight. She's got Pitbull with her tonight, for those of you watching out there, otherwise known as Armando. And just one question for you. You mentioned the national board last night and Sunday morning. Any color on that before we take questions?
Thank you, Governor. Sorry. So in last Monday, the National Mediation Board asked us to come to Washington, to both parties, and to make sure we do a meeting. And we did. And that sort of kicked off a whole round of negotiations that went till late last night. They've now asked us to come back again on Sunday. We're going to do just that to make sure we do it. But I just want to be clear, I don't have to wait till Sunday. I actually saw Mark Wallace, the president of the BLAT, this morning at Penn Station. He was walking and I was walking, and we spent a few seconds talking, very polite, very normal conversation about how we're going to try to solve this problem together. So I want to convey this message that there isn't this acrimony that somehow gets projected in the media. When we are in the room together, we understand our mission, and I'm telling you right now, I am fully committed at Governor Murphy's direction to get this deal done, but it has to be fair to them, but it has to be fiscally responsible.
Well said. One other question. I'm doing the first two questions here. You can channel them through me. Any comment about other unions within NJ Transit in terms of their posture and profile today, if you don't mind?
I'll say that we have said to any union member at New Jersey Transit, if they want to come to work, we welcome them to come to work, and they have been coming to work, and they are doing the stuff they're supposed to be doing, and that shows a sense of their commitment to New Jersey Transit's mission. And I think that should be applauded. This isn't something to be vilified for, and we appreciate it, and we'll continue to work. And I want to emphasize what the governor said. The men outside in orange shirts, not transit men, but the other men, and the locomotive engineers, want to get back to work, and we want them to get back to work. That is the entire mission here, because ultimately we want the 350,000 daily riders to be able to use the mass transit system that they rely on.
Like any labor action like this, not only is it a real burden and challenge for our commuters, it ultimately is a burden and challenge for those guys out there and their families. So it's in all of our interests to get to a resolution here, and we are wide open for business to do that. Again, it's got to meet those two objectives: fair to them and fiscally responsible for us. We believe that a deal is there, and God willing, that will come to fruition. With that, we'll take a couple of quick questions. Brenda. It is Brenda. I'll let Kris address that. It's a very good question, and we did hit it last night, but we should hit it again this morning. The difference between getting this right and wrong, I mentioned this in passing last night, is a difference between single-digit to low double-digit millions of dollars on the one hand versus 9-digit millions of dollars on the other hand. The former is within our purview, within Kris's and my purview to be able to handle. The latter is in the category of blowing up our fiscal reality at NJ Transit, which we cannot allow to happen. Kris, do you mind addressing?
Yes, sir. I think, let me try to frame it this way. These are incredibly complex agreements, right? If the structure of the agreement is focused on locomotive engineers and things that they want to change in work rules and they want to give back in work rule savings, then it becomes a locomotive engineer contract. If it looks and feels like it's anything other than that, somebody asked me, are these so-called Me Too clauses consistent in every union contract? The answer is yes. So this isn't just a unique thing for New Jersey Transit. So all we're trying to do is solve for this very important issue of wages that the union has asked for, but in the foundation that the governor talked about, fair and fiscally responsible, is grounded in the structure of the contract as well, because we have to make sure all the concessions we're asking for are locomotive engineer concessions, and all the changes we're producing that'll give them this increase are locomotive specific wage increases, if that makes sense.
By the way, we gotta get a different title for this category here. Just want to get that off my chest here. I'm going to hand this one to Kris.
Yeah, yes, sir. If done incorrectly, or done correctly, it doesn't matter, forget intent for 1 second. Every union, regardless, by the way, of New Jersey Transit or not, this happens at the Turnpike, this happens in firemen, this happens in police, this happens in teachers. In general, that's my understanding. There is what is called a side letter that basically informs a process by which it triggers this clause. And what I am suggesting is, and it is not, think about it from a union's perspective and why they would need a letter like that. If they were first in the door and they made a deal, and a few months later somebody else comes in the door and makes another deal that looks and feels a lot richer for doing basically the same things that these folks are doing, it's meant to protect them. So think about it that way. So it was meant to bring some level of equity, fairness, and parity for going first, if you will. So all we're saying is if our intent is to solve this union's very specific sort of ask, we've said to them, let's put stuff on the table, concessions, if you will, that are very specific to you, and let's change work rules that are very specific to you. So forget all the other unions. We are focused on this union. That's where the governor's point about this could be in the multi-million-dollar from a wage raise. So they're not wrong about that. But what you can't do is sort of be a little careless, because all you care about is getting to a number, which is what the union's position is at the moment, and not worrying about what the consequences could be for the state in the out years, which is what we can't do. It's that straightforward.
By the way, I just repeat, the easy play for this guy and myself is to just sign up for something and not worry about what's going to happen after January 20th of next year. We're not going to do that. We know the shape of this system that we inherited. We will not do that to the next administration. Please. Yeah. Not a lot, by the way, which is good.
So in South Orange and in Central Jersey, when I say bus lines, I'm talking about a couple of buses doing a couple of periods during the morning. But what we were able to do is resource them to make sure the people who are there are handled and put on the buses. But the most important thing you need to know is there were no lines waiting to get on the bus. It was just we have very good technology on our buses where we're able to measure what's going on regular demand versus current demand and be able to sort of handle our demand management of the fleet, if you will. No, look, I mean, the governor, with his approval, we just made a deal with the 5,500 members of the bus union last week, and they stuck with pattern, and they are very, very happy. So we have a tentative agreement with them.
I don't think we're aware of anybody outside of the engineers not showing up today. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, broadly.
Broadly speaking, at least. Please. Yeah, let me start with the last part, and then Kris give you the details. Friday is clearly the easiest weekday of the 5, notwithstanding MetLife's activities, which is makes it a significant, both last night and tonight, a significant lift. We're very much well aware of that. Frankly, if this had to happen, having it happen at 12:01 on Friday, I think it's fair to say, Kris, gives you and your colleagues a chance to suss out what's working, what's not working, where we need to plus up resources, et cetera, on a day that will be lighter than Monday for sure. And Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday continue to be our big commute days. Any other color you want to throw?
And let me answer it this way. I think some bus lines are crowded even during regular non-strike days, right? So what I'm suggesting to you is when we identified a few instances on 1 or 2 of our bus lines, we were able to adapt very quickly to solve for that problem, which is sort of the central theme of how we're managing the strike, which is very calmly, methodically identify a problem and solve for it when it happens, which is how good organizations do business.
There is no, I have to say, and this is a big shout out to Kris and his team, there's no sense of panic. This is a professional operation. We did not want to see this day come, but they were prepared for it. And I have to say I'm incredibly impressed by their efforts so far. I think I can answer for Kris and his team to say we're going to war game what happened this morning and this afternoon, probably tonight as well, because we have I hope it doesn't get out that far, but we got Beyonce coming in for 5 nights beginning next week. I'm sure there'll be lessons learned that will be applied. Please. I'll let Kris, I didn't see Sean's comment, by the way. Sean's a Boston boy, bless his heart. Didn't these guys leave the Teamsters? Yeah. The New Jersey guys. Okay, that's a separate, have to ask Sean what his thoughts are on that. The tone in the room is exactly what you would expect it would be. Kris will give you color, but this is a professional. The fact that we're not agreeing doesn't mean that we're throwing chairs at each other. To the contrary, we just are at an impasse. You should probably add to that.
Yeah, look, I've now met with the general chairman, I don't know, over the 120 days I've been in this job, maybe like 10 of those 120 days, 10 weeks out of those 120 days, one way or the other. And I've gotten to know the new president, national president. Look, what I'm trying to convey is I understand that people have to say certain things in the public. I respect that. But what I'm saying to you is my approach always has been to try and sort of understand their position and try to get to a solution. And I think ultimately that is the only objective. So I like to think I have a relatively thick skin, so they can call me whatever they want, but in the end, the question is, do they want a deal or not? I want it. Do they want it?
This is the nature of the beast. If you looked at what folks across the aisle would have say about me, and then if you were to look at our private deliberations and negotiations, it's life. It's life. We all know that that's the way it works. Couple other quickies. Where are you?
I'm back here.
Hi.
Good morning.
Did we not reserve you a seat or what?
No, I.
Okay.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, I'll let Kris respond to the details, but we've been at that table in good faith, and we've said, including last night at Newark Penn, we reiterated this morning, we're here. We're open for business. We want to get this solved. So this notion of walking away is not accurate. You also have to accept when you think there's an impasse that can't be bridged. And I think it's fair to say, Kris, we were a lot further along on the fairness to them parameter than we were with something that we could accept in terms of fiscal responsibility. And that is a deal breaker for us. I wish it weren't, but it is.
I'll just say there hasn't been anyone in their relationship with New Jersey Transit who's been more willing to negotiate than me. In fact, I don't need to just say it. The proof is in the pudding. I've already done it once. I was the first guy to reach out to them first time around. I was the first guy to reach out to them second time. I think the only reason why we came to the decision we did together, I might add, because I ended the meeting by saying the follows. You have put forward a proposal that seems fair to you, but it doesn't solve our fundamental issue of fiscal responsibleness. Here's our counter. To which they said, well, that doesn't meet what we think is right. And I said, why don't we do this? You take time to think about it, we'll take time to think about it, and then we'll continue talking to reach a solution. And that's when the National Mediation Board, which was present the entire time for all 3 days, said, why don't we all gather on Sunday? So that doesn't sound to me like I left in a huff and a puff. It just sounds like doing what reasonable people do after almost 11 hours of negotiating, saying you're at a position that's not tenable to us. You still don't seem to agree with where we are, but we are making progress, and we'll get there. Well, that's the beauty about these negotiations, right? Just because they say it and just because I say it doesn't mean there's not a deal in there. This is not, I'm sorry, I know this is complex, but the job is complex, but the outcome doesn't have to be. It's as simple as what the governor laid out. These two principles and the structure that we're talking about together. By the way, this doesn't mean they have to accept all our ideas or they have to accept all our ideas. We've had 3 days of extraordinarily productive discussions. And I'll say this to you. If you sort of look at this contract as a 100% deal, we're 95% there. So this isn't, the reason I continue to be optimistic that we can get there is this is about solving for their problem and our need. That's it. And we'll get there.
Do one or two more, please. Said it last night as well, yes. Sure, I think Kris will respond to it, but please.
Sure. Look, let me not debate the numbers they put on the table and I put on the table. Let me just sort of answer it maybe a little bit broadly, okay? They started this discussion by saying we're not getting paid enough. Fair point. And they said we're making $10 less than everybody else in this region. Fair enough. So when those are the sort of two principal issues, and you solve for it, then doesn't matter whether it is a metric that holds today or tomorrow morning. They wanted a number that I thought, got very close to in our negotiations, their number. And I still think we can get there. So I could, but I'm not going to, but I'll give you one example. Do you know the Metro North engineer, a trainee, takes 8 years to make the salary that a New Jersey Transit engineer makes in 2 years? Why is that? Because it takes a trainee at Metro North to go through what is called a progressive wage for 8 years. Not so at New Jersey Transit. Do you know why? because the day they're hired, they train for the number of years, which is 2 roughly. At the end of 2 years, they make full wage. Full wage. So there is no progression. So I could say, but I don't say it at the table, but I wanted to give you an example. I could say, wait, that's not fair. So why are you demanding a wage in year 2 that is higher than what Metro North makes until year 8? I don't do it. You know why? Because it is not a productive point. We need to focus on what is they're trying to achieve and what we have to achieve. That's it. That's how you get to a deal. And I'm telling you, as long as we're focused on those 2 principles, we can get there.
I think we're going to fold the tent real quick. I have the same reaction as I had with Mayor Baraka, even more so in this case, because as a member of Congress, unless our lawyers tell me I've got my constitutional facts wrong, they have an absolute right to inspect any facility like that. So I've seen the same rumors. I've got no comment on the specifics, but LaMonica, Bonnie Watson-Coleman, Rob Menendez have absolute rights to inspect those facilities. And if that goes ahead, I think it's just as I said about Ras Baraka, outrageous. Thank you all. Stay tuned.